The greatest tragedy is not a bad day, it is a wasted morning. Because how you start anything determines how you finish everything. Let me ask you a question. What is the first thing you do when you wake up? Do you grab your phone or do you grab your purpose? We live in a world full of noise, full of movement, full of speed. But motion without direction is chaos. And the greatest weapon the enemy uses today is distraction in the first hour. Because if he can steal your morning, he can hijack your destiny. Let me tell you something that will shift the way you approach every single day of your life. What you put first reveals what you truly value. And whatever you value, you empower. If you give your phone the first 30 minutes of your day, you've just told heaven and hell that entertainment has authority over your life. If you give your worry the first thought of the morning, you've declared anxiety as your counselor. If you rise from your bed without alignment, you may walk through the day misassigned, because you cannot expect divine results with human disorder. First matter. In the kingdom, first are not casual. They are covenant. That's why God doesn't ask for leftovers. He asks for the firstborn, the first fruits, the first love. Not because he needs it, but because it reflects honor. And honor is the currency of access. When you put something first, you don't just schedule it. You crown it. Now hear me, your morning is not a countdown to your commute. It's not a prelude to your problems. It is sacred ground. And how you walk on that ground determines the posture of your entire day. The ancient Israelites understood the power of morning when the manna fell from heaven, it came early. If they delayed, it melted. Miss the morning, and you miss your manna, your spiritual sustenance, your clarity, your direction. It arrives in the quiet and the stillness and the dawn. But if you're too busy sleeping, scrolling, or rushing, you'll substitute divine provision with worldly panic. I was flying once early in the morning, and I noticed how smooth everything was above the clouds. Below, the storm was raging, the wind howling, turbulence everywhere. But at a certain altitude, there was peace, quiet, clarity. That's the morning hour. That's the first portion of your day. It's where heaven is still open before the world starts shouting. But some of you wake up already behind. You start your day in a race with time, with your alarm clock as your master. That's not dominion. That's bondage to reaction. You were never created to chase the day. You were created to command it. David said, "Early will I seek you." Not because God is more available at 6 a.m., but because the soul is quieter and the atmosphere is cleaner. Before the meetings, before the emails, before the pressure, seek alignment, not agenda. Let me ask you this. When a king rises in the morning, do you think he rushes into the chaos? No. He sits, he prepares, he is briefed. His staff gives him reports. He listens before he speaks. He governs before he moves. And yet, many of us rise and run like slaves instead of ruling like kings. Don't call yourself royalty if your morning is ruled by randomness. Royalty is not just about robes, it's about rhythm. I met a man once who transformed his entire business, not by taking a new course, not by hiring a consultant, but by changing what he did between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. He started waking up with intention, not emotion. Reading instead of reacting. Meditating instead of rushing. Planning instead of panicking. 6 months later, his revenue tripled. But more than that, his mind cleared, his relationships deepened, and his soul found rest. See, it wasn't just a routine, it was a reordering of power. Because when you seek alignment first, strategy flows naturally. The world wants you distracted first, so you live off fragments all day. But heaven calls you to center yourself first, so you live with focus. Listen to me. Don't start your day in reaction. Start it in revelation. Don't rise with the noise. Rise with the voice. What you put first will command the rest. So if you want your day to flow with wisdom, make wisdom the first guest at your table. If you want peace to follow you, sit with peace before the world pulls you. If you want to live above the clouds, take off early. So just wake up, rise up. Because whoever owns your morning owns your momentum. And from this day forward, it will no longer be fear or your phone or your fatigue. It will be faith. It will be clarity. It will be rulership. Your morning belongs to the King in you. Now, Ruth, let me tell you something that most people overlook. Your mind is a battlefield, and the war is won or lost before noon. If you don't train your thoughts early, they will train you. If you don't discipline your inner world when the sun rises, your outer world will collapse by nightfall. Because your life is always moving in the direction of your most dominant thoughts, and your thoughts are never neutral. You don't wake up with peace, you wake up with potential. You don't wake up with strategy, you wake up with static. And if you don't deliberately filter, focus, and fuel your mind in the early hours, you will end up reacting to life like a person with no compass. The mind doesn't start the day clean. It starts the day open, vulnerable, impressionable, ready to receive a voice. The question is, which voice gets there first? Will it be the voice of guilt, the voice of pressure, the voice of fear, or will it be the voice of heaven? The early hours are sacred because they are soft. That's the window where heaven writes instructions and hell tries to graffiti your clarity. Neurologists say that the human brain moves through different waves as we sleep, delta, theta, alpha, beta. And in the first few minutes after waking, your mind is still in the alpha state, open, impressionable, forming associations, building pathways. What you let in during that moment doesn't just visit your mind, it builds furniture. So if the first thing you expose your eyes to is comparison, you will carry envy into your meetings. If the first thing you feed your brain is chaos, don't expect to walk in peace. If you let the headlines program you before the Word of God grounds you, your life will be informed by fear, not faith. That's what the Bible says. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It doesn't say be informed, it says be transformed. Because what you allow to shape your thoughts will eventually sculpt your decisions. I spoke to a young man once, brilliant, gifted, highly skilled, but every time he tried to launch, he second-guessed himself. Every time opportunity came, he retreated, not because he lacked talent, but because his mind was trained to distrust his own strength. Why? Because every morning he started his day reliving regret. He opened old messages, read old failures, remembered who left him, who doubted him. And over time, those thoughts became chains. But the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and repetition. If you keep feeding it loss, it won't believe in victory. If you keep feeding it fear, it won't reach for faith. And so I told him, stop replaying the soundtrack of your trauma, start writing the script of your healing. And how do you do that? You start with the morning. You interrupt the noise with truth. You silence the old voices with new vision. You get up and you speak life to your own mind before anyone else speaks at all. Because if you don't direct your thoughts, someone else wills. And the world is not gentle with your identity. You weren't created to survive with a weak mind in a strong world. You were created to rise with clarity, courage, and conviction. But that kind of mind must be trained, not inherited. And training begins early, when the world is still quiet, when heaven is still speaking, before the opinions arrive, before the noise. So this is my challenge to you. Don't just wake up your body, wake up your mind. Don't just brush your teeth, clean your thoughts. Don't just get dressed, get renewed. Because you don't live life with your hands, you live it with your mind. And the world you create tomorrow is determined by the thoughts you build today. So every morning, before the world speaks, rewire your mind for what heaven wants to manifest. Because a kingdom thinker isn't born. They are built every morning. Let me tell you something you may have never realized. Your words are not just expressions. They are constructions. Every time you speak, you are either building your life or breaking it apart. You are either unlocking doors or sealing your own prison. Because in the kingdom, speech is not casual. It is creative power. God did not create the world with his hands. He created it with his voice. He said, "Let there be," and the universe responded. And then he made you in his image, not just to reflect his face, but to replicate his function. That means you were designed not just to talk, but to declare, to decree, to establish. Your words are not noise. They are law in your own atmosphere. When you wake up in the morning, your mouth becomes the gatekeeper of your day. And yet so many of us begin our day speaking defeat, joking about failure, rehearsing disappointment. We casually say things like, "I'm tired already," or "This day's going to be long," or "I'm so behind." We think we're just being honest, but we're actually writing prophetic scripts for a life we don't want to live. Because the spirit realm does not respond to your emotions. It responds to your voice. I knew a woman once, full of faith, but every time she spoke about her business, she would say, "I'm trying. It's hard out here. People just don't support." She wasn't lying. She was living by sight. But the problem is your language always leads your life. So even when opportunity came, she couldn't see it because she had already told her mind what to expect. You cannot walk in abundance while speaking in limitation. If you want to change your day, don't just change your schedule, change your speech. Wake up and speak to your day like it's listening, because it is. Speak to your time, speak to your health, speak to your thoughts. Stop giving your voice to fear and frustration, and start giving it to vision and vitality. Jesus said, "You will have what you say." He didn't say you'll have what you hope. He didn't say you'll have what you feel. He said you will have what you say. So if you say you're always overlooked, don't be surprised when no one sees you. If you say you never have enough, don't be shocked when increase avoids your house. Your words are like seeds. They don't respond to intention, they respond to activation. I've sat across from men who had all the intelligence, all the gifting, all the connections, but no power in their life. Not because God wasn't moving, but because they were contradicting heaven with their own mouth. God can only bless what you are willing to align with. An alignment starts at the level of your confession. You can't beg for breakthrough and speak like a victim. You can't pray for clarity and talk like confusion. You can't ask for joy and declare misery. You must speak like royalty, because you are royalty. And kings do not plead, they proclaim. The devil isn't afraid of your silence. He's afraid of your sound, because your sound carries authority. And if he can convince you to stay silent, to joke about your future, to speak death over your identity, then he doesn't need to steal your blessing. You already handed it over. You better start talking like what you believe is on the way. Talk like healing is happening. Talk like doors are opening. Talk like the right people are coming. The right wisdom is flowing. The right timing is aligning. Because when you speak, you send assignments into motion. That's why the enemy attacks your tongue, because it's your weapon. That's why he tempts you to complain, gossip, and speak lack. Because he knows if you ever align your voice with God's will, you become unstoppable. So let me leave you with this. Don't waste your mornings with careless conversation. Use your mouth to build what your hands will touch. Your future is waiting for your voice. Now open your mouth and send your day where your feet haven't gone yet. Let me tell you this. The most dangerous man is not the one who is busy. It is the one who is misaligned. And you can wake up every morning, rush out the door, check off 100 tasks, and still move in circles. Because movement without alignment is misdirection in disguise. You were not born to hustle. You were born to advance. You were not designed to simply be active. You were designed to be accurate. And accuracy requires alignment. Every morning is not just an opportunity to wake up, it is a divine window to realign your will, your steps, your priorities with the heart of heaven. Because let's be honest, life has a way of pulling you off track. People's demands, internal doubts, external pressures, all these things begin to nudge you slowly away from where you were meant to be. And if you don't stop and recalibrate in the morning, you will find yourself saying yes to things that drain you, chasing outcomes that don't belong to you, and carrying weights you were never built to hold. Let me show you something. Even airplanes, with all their technology, drift off course within minutes of takeoff. And yet they don't crash. Why? Because they are constantly realigning, constantly checking with the tower, constantly adjusting to stay on course. That's what mornings are for. You are the plane, but your morning must be the tower. I met a woman who ran a successful nonprofit. Every day was full, meetings, travel, decisions. But one morning she decided to sit still, to stop, to ask the one question most people avoid. God, is this still the assignment? And in that stillness, she realized she had outgrown the season. She was still serving, but not sent. Still busy, but no longer burning. And that morning, she made a pivot that multiplied her impact tenfold, because clarity came when she realigned. Some of you are tired not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing things without direction. The kingdom operates by alignment. Seek first. That's not just about sequence, it's about strategy. When you seek alignment first, everything else falls into place. And the only way to live with confidence is to move from clarity. You can't afford to start your day guessing. You can't afford to walk through life assuming. You need to check in. You need to sit before you move. You need to ask before you answer. You need to listen before you lead. Because if you don't take time to align, you'll end up impressing people and disappointing heaven. So hear me now. The morning isn't just a routine. It's not a ritual. It is a command center, a divine meeting place where eternity hands you the instructions for time. Don't start your day with your calendar. Start it with the King. And when you move from that place, your steps will not just be ordered, they will be unstoppable. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to say may just confront the lie you've been living in. Disorder is not a personality trait. It is a spiritual threat. Chaos is not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Because wherever there is disorder, there is distraction. And wherever there is distraction, there is delay. You cannot build a powerful life on a sloppy foundation. You cannot walk in authority with a scattered routine. And you will never manifest a heavenly destiny while entertaining earthly disorganization. We often cry out for clarity, for focus, for progress. Yet we wake up in mess, we live in mess, we think in mess. And then we wonder why momentum seems to pass us by. Let me tell you, the enemy doesn't always use sin to stop you. Sometimes he just uses disarray. Because if he can keep you busy but disordered, he knows you will burn energy but not build anything. He knows you will touch everything and transform nothing. I once visited a young man's apartment. Talented, anointed, called, but everywhere. Papers close, missed deadlines, unopened mail. And as we spoke, I realized something deeper. His environment was a mirror of his mind. Disorder externally was reinforcing doubt internally. He couldn't hear clearly because his surroundings were shouting confusion. And I told him something he'll never forget. You don't clean your space just to impress guests. You clean it to prepare your mind for instruction. Because structure invites revelation. Look at creation. God didn't speak the sun into a storm. He brought order. And then he called forth purpose. He separated the waters, arranged the heavens, assigned boundaries. Only after the order was in place did he command fruitfulness. So what makes you think your life will be any different? You want fruit? Bring structure. You want peace? Eliminate the clutter. You want divine flow? Set divine boundaries. Every morning you must create order. Visibly and mentally, tidy your space, review your priorities, establish the rhythm, prepare the vessel for the oil. Because the Spirit of God is not drawn to noise. He is drawn to preparedness. If you keep tolerating chaos, don't cry when nothing grows. If you keep living in distraction, don't wonder why revelation feels rare. Sometimes the breakthrough you're praying for isn't locked in the heavens. It's buried under the pile of your procrastination. And I speak this with love, but also with urgency. Stop praying for acceleration when your life is still tangled in disorder. Get your house in order. Get your day in order. Get your mind in order. Because heaven won't send strategies to a place that's too cluttered to contain them. So from now on, let every morning become a declaration. This house is ready. Its mind is clear. The vessel is set. Let the increase come. And let me speak straight to your spirit. Because this is the point where many gifted, brilliant, anointed people quietly fall short. You are not missing strategy. You are not lacking vision. You are starving of one thing: consistency. And the tragedy is this: you keep blaming God for delays that your inconsistency caused. Faith without discipline is fantasy. Desire without repetition is just noise. You can be inspired on Sunday, but if your habits on Monday are undisciplined, your future will never arrive. Consistency is the womb of greatness. Not the event, not the applause, not the breakthrough. What births the extraordinary is repetition under pressure, doing what needs to be done when you don't feel like it, returning daily to the altar when your emotions say otherwise. We often underestimate the power of small, hidden obedience. But God never called you to be famous. He called you to be faithful. I knew a young musician, fire in his bones, songs in his belly, talent undeniable. But he waited for motivation, waited to feel led, waited for the right moment. And while he waited, 5 years passed. People with half his talent but double his discipline surpassed him, not because they were better, but because they showed up even when inspiration didn't. Because the anointing doesn't make up for your absence. It multiplies your consistency. Look at the manna from heaven. It didn't drop once a week. It came every morning. But those who didn't show up missed it. And those who gathered too much thinking they could skip tomorrow, it rotted. Why? Because heaven trains you with daily responsibility, daily routines, daily obedience, daily showing up. Your destiny is not one massive leap. It is a million silent steps, waking up, showing up, listening, building, praying, repeating, not because it feels good, but because your spirit is being forged into something unshakable. You think the power is in the size of your actions, but it's in the stability of your rhythm. Your enemy isn't a giant. Your enemy is the pattern of stopping and starting, quitting and restarting, doubting and delaying. If you keep waiting to feel ready, you will live on the edge of progress and never taste it. But if you make a covenant with consistency, if you make that bed, read that word, speak that truth, align your morning, the gates of hell cannot stop what heaven has already scheduled. So I dare you, don't just be inspired by this word, be consistent with it. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is glorious. It is not celebrated, but it is recorded in heaven. Because God does not reward talent, He rewards diligence. So wake up tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, and when nobody claps, and nobody sees, and nothing shifts, do it again. Because one morning the heavens will break open, not because you shouted loud, but because you stayed steady. And when that moment comes, the world will call you overnight success. But heaven will say, "Well done, faithful one." So let me leave you with this final charge. Your life will never rise beyond your rhythms. Destiny does not respond to dreams, it responds to discipline. If you command your mornings, you will conquer your days. If you win the beginning, you can write the ending. But if you continue to treat the first moments of your day casually, you will live beneath your calling, silently. You were not created for confusion. You were not designed for delay. You were not anointed for mediocrity. You were born with divine breath, placed in time with a sacred assignment. And every sunrise is a summons, a call to align, to build, to speak, to move, and to grow. So I declare this over you. May your mornings become altars where heaven meets earth. May your words be weapons, not just wishes. May your routine become a revelation. And may your consistency preach louder than your words ever could. You don't need another miracle. You need a commitment. You don't need another sign. You need a system. And you don't need more time. You need to honor the time you already have. To rise tomorrow with authority. Guard your atmosphere. Align your steps. And don't wait for the world to recognize you. Command your world to respond to you. Because the kingdom is not waiting on your inspiration. It's waiting on your execution. Good luck to you on this journey of transformation. You have everything you need. The only thing left is to begin. Thank you for listening. Thank you for leaning in. Now go and build a life that makes heaven proud.